Yeah. When you see a 2 without typos, it's Stan. So, so anyway, so now's a good time to kind of take a breather. Are there any questions that you guys have in general? I know there's a question. We talked about the biometrics and stuff like that. Well, we have a few minutes breather. Is there anything you guys want to talk about or need or want? Yes.
So when you go to like Safeway and the stores to sign up for the rewards, savings rewards, what happens with that information? Do they sell it to everybody else?
Oh.
Or what happens?
I'm not gonna give any spoilers. As one of the presentations coming up actually gives a great example of that. But the short answer is that if you're not paying for a service, you're not the customer, you're the product, right? So you look at Facebook, you look at Twitter, things like that, where you don't have to pay for it. That's because you're not the one they're making money off. You're not the one that's giving them the money. It's someone else. And the product is your privacy. So there's a trade-off that we make. So when you look at it from the perspective of the one you're giving the information to, why do they want this information? Why are they willing to give you something for free? For free is always a weird sell. I had a lot of conversations through Operation Safe Escape, where I'd contact an agency and I'd say, hey, we want to give you things for free. They'd say, right. What do you really want? What's the catch? No, actually for free. Sometimes that happens. But when it's a for-profit enterprise, when we're talking about a company, they don't want to give things for free. They don't make money by giving things away. So when you get those discounts and stuff like that, that's them throwing you a bone in exchange for your shopping habits and for your personal information. You put in your phone number, and I'm guilty. I have my phone number in Giant and some other stores and things like that, which I love Giant because I'm such a child. I giggle every time they say, do you have your Giant card? And I say, no, I just the regular sized one. and they laugh politely, and I feel bad afterwards, but that's okay. So yeah, they have my phone number in there. Is that part of the reason why I keep getting soliciting calls? Probably. Do I have another phone number that I don't want to use for scam and stuff? Yeah, absolutely. I do have my own real phone number plus the phone number that I want them to have. So short answer is that's all part of the profile that's being collected on you. Did you all know there's another Facebook breach recently? You'll see that in the news. Another one, a major. It's like what, 50 million accounts, something huge like that. And the worst part was, I'm sorry. Is it up to 90 now? Okay, so 90 million. That's a mind-bogglingly large number.
What was the breach?
What's that?
What was the breach?
It was.
I remember it was about. Damn it, I forget.
Was a lot of the account information and some of the personal information, and kind of the part that's most offensive to me, because she was talking about two-factor. Do you know what two-factor authentication is? Yeah. Yeah. So like maybe you have a token to get on your computer. Or you get a text message or something. Text messaging is not secure two-factor authentication, by the way. Use the app function if you can. Text messages can be spoofed. There's a lot of ways around that. It's not optimal, but it's better than nothing. But the phone number we were giving to Facebook was for that two-factor authentication. They were selling that. So we were saying we want some private information. We want to be more secure, and they were saying you'd be more secure, but you're going to get phone calls anyways.
I just did it because she was like,
It was the US thing, so it exploited the US option.
Oh, right.
So that tool to make you more secure, it was, I guess how they did it is people were able to bypass it
Yeah.
and view your account. And it was 50 million that were affected, but 90 million that were potentially affected.
Oh, wow, okay.
It made 90 million people sign back in.
Yeah. Yeah, the last number, as far as 2015, which is the last number I'm aware of, there's something like 50,000 Facebook accounts were compromised every single day. Yeah, a huge number, because there's so many people using it. A lot of the accounts aren't real or anything else. So I'm not saying don't use Facebook, but I'm saying don't use Facebook for anything private. Oh, there's another question there.
You reminded me when you said spoofing. In any of these presentations, is there going to be a conversation about spoofing? Like how you may be able to detect if there's some spoofing going on, how to address it, report it?
A little bit tomorrow in terms of, so you're talking like spoofing text messages and things like that?
Right. So like a lot of my cases have been the other person spoofs her, let's just say him and her.
Yeah.
He spoofs her phone number.
Right.
Sends himself text messages. And it looks like it's coming from her, and he's like, look, she's got a protective order against me. Let's say that.
Yeah.
But she's texting me.
I have some information on that, and Amanda's going to be touching on that a little bit tomorrow as well. She does like technical cases and things like that. Might become your best friend very shortly. Was there? Yes, ma'am.
So I just wanted to know whether this is, for any reason, not a good strategy in the long run, but I know of people, and I have myself in the past given out false information to just, and then on multiple platforms, so
Right.
it seems as if like that's this real thing, as just a way of putting out
Mhm.
maybe not real information. So I wonder if you could speak to that. And as to the card thing, I just wanted to say I have like a Safeway card, but they don't verify anything on there. My first name is real, nothing else. And so they don't have, I mean, they're not going to, I don't know how they're
Yeah.
going to verify it. And I get to be
I had read once that in almost every area, if you do the zip code or area code plus 8675309, it works. Yes.
oh, wow.
And I've tried that actually as I've traveled through the country. I've tried that. 8675309. That one? Yeah, because you're right. Is that it uses your phone number as a way to identify you, kind of like how we use Social Security numbers as a way to identify you, not how it's supposed to be used.
Like 30 years ago, when security wasn't a problem, but now we're paranoid. Like
Good.
everything's fake now.
Good.
My old Safeway card from however long ago, I wasn't quite paranoid back then. So.
And that was the original question. If you couldn't hear over there, is that what about using fake information? And actually, we just a couple days ago, put a new security guide online about how to lie about stuff like that. I'm a huge fan of lying. When it comes to when you're trying to hide from someone or trying to keep yourself private, I'm a huge fan of lying, and I think you should as often as you can. And I don't say, and lying isn't in the pejorative sense. It's not a bad thing here. It's creating false misinformation. It's strategic misdirection. It's the magician saying, look over here when they're doing something over here. So I would say, and like I said, look at the security guide when you get a chance. I would say don't always close down those old accounts. If you have a Facebook account that you've abandoned or you just get back into or something like that, it has history on it. Maybe you don't need to close it down. That reduces your attack vector. It's fewer ways that people can get in if you close it, sure. But if that's the account, if you've left and you've gone off to Texas or Florida or something like that, and then your account starts talking about the weather in California, or starts talking about how you just started going to school at UCLA, you're very excited about this teacher and everything else, that's all like realistic stuff. And so someone's looking at that. We tend to, especially if you're not trained, if you're not involved in intelligence work or things, if that's not what you do, we have a natural habit of self-referencing information. So we validate the information against itself, which isn't accurate. But that means it's very easy to fool somebody if that's what you're trying to do. So the average abuser, I'm just saying in the average sense, is not an intelligence operative, is not a highly technical person. That does exist, absolutely. But when we're talking about just the law of averages, if we're betting against what's most common, we're talking about people that can be fooled in that regard. And so when you have the opportunity, like I said, look at the security guide we put out that goes into greater depth on this. But when you have the opportunity to mislead someone, mislead them. You can use what's called search engine optimization if you're not familiar, but that's basically the process of making sure pages that you want bump up a little bit higher. But I've seen people, and I've worked with people where we've said, okay, let's just make a easy WordPress free web page about you with information that'll show up when someone searches for you. Let's optimize it so it'll show up for you, and let's put some false information in there. So whatever you can do, because it's really hard to remove yourself from the internet anymore. It's really hard to just say, I'm not on the internet. So kind of the goal then becomes to drown out the real information with fake information, or to make it misleading, or to make the information less reliable. Because if you're talking about someone who has to allocate their own resources to find somebody, it's an individual, they only have so many resources. They can't follow every lead. So if you make so many leads they can't follow them all, it makes things a little bit safer.
When you do that, I apologize. Oh, okay. Even in doing that, do these different entities that necessarily require your real information, do they utilize sort of those false leads also, right, in trying to verify you? So, like, I'm thinking about, not just if someone Googles you, like if you sign up for something, say you go and get a timeshare and they're doing a credit check on you, and all these fake addresses start coming up, and then it's harder for you to verify who you are.
Generally speaking, it's easy if you want to prove your location. If you have a means to actively do it and you're involved in that process, there's ways that you can do it. You have a government-issued ID card, for example, and that's generally enough. But there's other ways where you can, it's not uncommon for someone to move around a lot, so there's going to be weird information about them anyways. For some reason, I have an address in a state I never lived in. I have no idea why that shows up, but I love it. That's fine. But if I want to get a new service or a new account, it's very easy for me to say, here's my actual information. You have a follow-up? Mm-hmm.
Immigrants or whatever, and it's like there's two people in the state.
Right. Right. Yeah. No, right. And that's a real problem. Yeah, you know, my name, Chris Cox, there's about 6 or 7 well-known ones, and they always show up. So you find like the SEC chairman, you find a horseman, you find a congressman, and people that aren't me, so that's great. But when it's a case where your name is very, very unique, that can be a case where it's PII. You guys have PII training, you deal with that. Normally think about social security numbers, birth dates, all that paired together. A name can be PII. It can be enough to identify a person. Zoe, did you have?
I was going to say in the EU, they just redefine personal information.
Uh-huh.
And even like something that in one context is not identifiable, in the next context it is. Like if you said the red person with red hair in this room, that potentially is identifiable for me. So that would be personal information.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
very, very sensitive.
Zoe, and bless her heart, Zoe is getting over a cold, so if you can't hear her, that's why. She will be amplified when she speaks later on, so you'll be able to hear her a lot easier. But what Zoe was saying is that in the EU, which a lot of you are familiar, they've recently changed their privacy laws. They're talking about ways you can identify someone that's not necessarily traditional PII, not the things we normally train about. So in that case, it can be a descriptor, or in this case, a name. And that's where it becomes very, very difficult because you have something that you can't really reasonably easily change about. So you can change your name, sure, but that's your identity. And that becomes kind of unfair to tell that person you're in a bad situation, you have to change your name. And so that's where if they choose not to do that, which some people do because their name is so unique, but if they choose not to do it, that's where you can start to talk about misinformation and ways that they can blend in a little bit better, or at least be found, but be found on their terms.
I was thinking like just telling one person false profile.
Absolutely. Yeah, increase the noise. You want to increase the signal to noise ratio so it's harder to tell fact from fiction. Absolutely. And as much as possible, make them very, very realistic as well. You know, give them backstories and personalities and everything else.
On the Facebook one, I don't know if anybody mentioned, but when you navigate to your Facebook account, you've got like Facebook / your unique identifier.
Uh-huh.
You can customize that one. So if you take out your name from that, so a lot of times when I'm doing investigative work, I use that identifier because that's actually what people use on their social media accounts.
Mhm.
But you can also customize that for any letters, so it's actually harder to search for them.
She was saying that on Facebook, for those that couldn't hear, she was saying that on Facebook you can customize your unique identifier name so that it can be not quite so descriptive of you.